Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Brandon Figueroa versus Joet Gonzalez fight. And so this is the first Patreon requested video in which I've done, and so this will be out around about, just less than a month before the actual fight is being announced, actually happening, and so it's going to be a breakdown of this specific fight on the undercard of the Pacquiao versus Barrios card, and it's a really good contest, and I'm glad that I get an opportunity to speak about it, because somebody actually wants to see me speak about it. And so yeah, this will be out on YouTube closer to the time of the actual fight date, but this was the first Patreon requested video where you have to be a member only to see it, to at least get early access to it. And like I say, if you want to join the Patreon, it's £5, and you can request me to do any kind of prediction videos and give any sort of analysis of what's going on in the combat sporting world. So let's get straight into this. And so like I say, Brandon Figueroa versus Joet Gonzalez. It's happening on the 19th of July. And so, like I say, on a great undercard, I think it's definitely an underrated fight on this undercard. It's a fight in which isn't really being spoken about that much. I mean, it is Figueroa coming off a loss, and that being his second loss to Stephen Fulton, and now he steps down into a 10-round contest against Joet Gonzalez. He hasn't fought a 10-round fight, Figueroa, since 2018, so 7 years he hasn't fought a 10-round fight, and that shows the level of pedigree in which he's been at, and how this isn't really a step down in opposition, but if he's already dropping down to 10 rounders against the likes of a Joet Gonzalez, if he does go on to lose this fight, then it will be quite a big drop down again if he is taking another drop down after this, because like I say, he hasn't taken too much of a step down throughout his whole career since 2018. He's kind of always been either coming up or he's just reached the pinnacle. And so, like I say, this is the first kind of step down he's ever realistically had in his career. And obviously, he is the former unified super bantamweight champion. He is a two-weight world champion, and so he's definitely a great name who has achieved already so much in the sport. But now that he's coming off a second loss versus Stephen Fulton, will he be the same type of fighter? I think a lot of people were expecting him to go out there and beat Fulton, because Fulton at the time, of course, had not too long ago fought Naoya Inoue and got absolutely beat down against Inoue, and then he came back and had a fight versus Castro, and that wasn't really the best of performances, and it wasn't really the most exciting of fights, and it wasn't really going to get the fans kind of thinking, oh, he's going to be able to stake a claim for him to be a world champion up at featherweight. But then he boxed really well against Figueroa, and wearing his Timberlands and his interesting fight outfit, he, like I say, performed very well and showcased that he is perhaps just a better fighter than Figueroa, because, of course, they fought twice now, and he has won twice, and he's won more convincingly that second time around, in my opinion. And so, I mean, Figueroa, like I say, he's achieved a lot. He's fought some really good guys in his career, and I think he has got quite an underrated resume. I mean, Magdaleno, Magsayo, Neri, Castro, just kind of the four big names in which he's had in ways of wins, and of course he's fought Fulton Jr. twice. And so, like I say, he definitely has fought some really top names in and amongst the division, and I think PBC are rewarding him still with favourable matchups. I mean, because of what he's achieved, he's not being put in a fight in which is, him coming in as the underdog. He's being put as a fight in which he's going to be the favourite in, and he's still on a big show and on a big card. So like I say, he's still getting the money, and like I say, I think PBC are still rewarding him with these big fights. And I mean, I definitely do believe, like I've touched upon, this fight will decide whether or not Figueroa is still a top name in the division. Whereas Gonzalez, I mean, this point in his career, he is coming off arguable bit of an upset victory against Khegai, where he won via split decision. And I mean, it was a very entertaining fight, just like most of Gonzalez's fights are. He will always try and bring the entertainment, and it was a very close split decision. I mean, some of the judges had it a bit wide, but the fact that it was a split decision made it a close fight, and Khegai had a point deducted, which again adds on to it being a close fight. And I mean, at the moment he's on a considerable amount of fights where he's kind of winning and losing and just doing that over and over again. And I mean, he has, of course, himself fought some really top names. I mean, you look at his resume, you've got Stevenson, Navarrete, Dogbo, Lopez, just some of the names in which he's lost to, but he's always taken them tough fights. And I mean, the Khegai win, arguably, I would say, was perhaps the biggest one of his career, or at least one of the biggest names in which he's in his career, because Khegai was on the come up and was expected to go on to fight for titles, but of course he was stopped by Gonzalez and Gonzalez's competitive style. And I mean, the fact that Gonzalez has had already so many tough top fights, and he's only 32 years of age, you've got to give him the credit in which he deserves. And so I suppose something in which he does kind of have in common with the opponents in which he's lost to is Stevenson, Navarrete and Lopez. They're all fast fighters who are quite difficult fighters to land on cleanly and quite difficult fighters to really be able to slow down. And he's not going to have this problem with Figueroa, which makes this fight more interesting to me, because Figueroa is going to be stood there in front of him and is going to just be standing and trading. So again, I think that's what makes this fight a entertaining one. And like I say, I mean, Gonzalez has never been stopped, and he's fought some powerful punches in Lopez and Navarrete, of course. And so the fact he's never been stopped and he is wanting to fight a firefight with fighters is going to make this fight, like I say, a very tough fight. And I mean, he is also the more natural featherweight. I mean, Figueroa is coming off a loss, and quite often you see fighters come off a loss and then try and move into a different weight division. Of course, he's not doing that, which I give him respect for. He's clearly comfortable at the featherweight division, Figueroa, but I do believe that Gonzalez is the more natural featherweight out of the two. Of course, he's been there for the longer time and he's fought at a higher level at featherweight, and so perhaps that might go into his favour for this fight. But speaking about them both individually as fighters, Figueroa as a fighter, he's of course typically got a high output. I think this high output of his is fading a little bit. I mean, it's still an incredibly kind of high output in which he is throwing, but it isn't quite what it used to be in the super bantamweight division. I think it is dropping a slight bit. He's got quite intense bodywork, and that's what for the most part he is known for. I mean, you look at his win against Magdaleno, that was a brutal body shot in which he landed on him, and again he's got that clubbing power. He tries to lean on you and impose his size and kind of puts in imposing shots where he is just, like I say, really trying to wear you down in close. He punches all over, he works well in a clinch, and he can keep you on the ropes for a significant amount of time where he is able to get his work off. And he has a unique type of jab in which he's able to kind of force his way in with the jab, and that's how he gets in his range. And I mean, it didn't realistically work that well against Fulton Jr. because the fact of him kind of forcing this push jab in and just leaving it out there to get in your face means that you can leave your own face kind of really open to taking shots, and that's when he was getting caught quite a lot by Stephen Fulton. But sometimes it gets him in range, and like I say, it can mean that he's able to get in his shots away a bit better. And I mean, typically in exchanges he is often the one who lands the more eye-catching punches, and like I say, his work rate typically is really good. Negatives about him, I think sometimes he tries to box a bit and slows down his output then, and I think there was certain rounds in which he tried to do that against Fulton Jr., and that's just where he came unstuck, because Fulton Jr. is the much more superior boxer. And I mean, Figueroa was being caught trying to come in, and he was lunging in, and when he was fighting at mid-range in general, it wasn't that successful. And it's a strange thing to see, because Figueroa is quite a long, tall fighter for the division, but he just really wants to fight in close. He doesn't seem that comfortable when he is fighting at a mid-range. I don't know if he's the best at fighting smaller fighters either, to be completely honest. Even though he is, like I say, the taller fighter, I think he would probably prefer and maybe get on a bit better to fight a taller fighter. He can get caught at a jab, and he was getting caught with Fulton Jr.'s jab significantly. He throws from quite wide at times. He doesn't really often bring his shots back, and like I say, I feel like his output might be dropping a little bit. It will be definitely interesting to see if he is going to be able to channel the kind of Figueroa of old coming into this fight. Gonzalez as a fighter, though, I think he's very comfortable under pressure, and that's come with his experience and his just dealing of tough fighters. He is seemingly very comfortable under pressure with a high guard that he often catches a lot of shots with. He can fight at mid or in close range. He changes levels nicely. He always aims to respond, which is something in which he did significantly against Khegai. He was just continually responding whenever he got caught. And I mean, he definitely does improve throughout fights. I think there is the argument to say that he does kind of lose quite often the early rounds of fights, because I just think he looks a bit off in the early rounds, and then all of a sudden he kind of flips the switch and then he's making it a war and he's using his hand speed, and like I say, he's growing into the fight. And if he's allowed to grow into the fight when the fight gets on later, then he's going to be landing some really good shots. And you know, if Figueroa can't get him out of there in the early rounds, then I think it could go into, like I say, a bit of a brutal war. And of course, nobody else has been able to get Gonzalez out of there so far. And yes, this is a Gonzalez who has been in more wars, and I mean the Khegai fight, he did take a lot of punishment, and I mean he got cut. He's been cut in multiple fights now, Gonzalez, so he definitely has been in quite a few wars. But I still don't know if Figueroa is going to be the guy who's going to be powerful enough to be able to hurt and drop Gonzalez, even though Figueroa does carry good power. He and Gonzalez, of course, you know, he maintains that high pace, and as soon as he gets into that gear and is allowed to have that pace, he will grow into the fight, take over the fight in that aspect, and like I say, maintain that high pace. Negatives about him, I think, whilst yes, it's good that he is catching a lot of shots and having this high guard, it means he's taking not tremendous amounts of punishment throughout the entirety of the fight. But the way that his arms are tucked in means he does have them kind of open spaces just around the tuckness of the arms. So the lower part of the body, kind of around the liver area, he can get shots that loop around there, and that's something in which Figueroa is really good at. Again, going back to that Magdaleno knockout, that was a shot that he landed, and he may be able to land that on Gonzalez, and that's what could hurt him. He moves back. He doesn't really move back too much, and again, you know, will he be staying on the ropes? Will he be trying to force himself to fight toe-to-toe? That will be interesting to see. He can definitely get drawn into a firefight, and for the most part, that probably will be his game plan. He gets cut often, like I say, which, again, can be a bad thing. I mean, he got caught versus Khegai, and that cut was quite a bad one. And again, it probably, if it gotten a little bit worse, maybe they might have called their fight off. So again, this is a thing that's happening on a few occasions now. He has minimal head movement. I think he forgets his jab a bit at times. Against Khegai, he was forgetting that jab, and it is a good jab. If he did utilise it more, perhaps he would have been able to make the fight a bit more in his favour. Instead, Khegai kind of grew into the 11th round and had a bit of a second wind, in which, you know, just meant that he was able to land shots because Gonzalez wasn't making a clear kind of difference and, you know, making a bit of a range difference between the two of them. He can't really deal too well with kind of in and out fighters and fighters who move really well. Like I say, Figueroa isn't that, but again, when you look at the losses in which he's had, Lopez, Navarrete, Stevenson, all fighters that do move quite awkwardly and do have a bit of an in and out type style. And I do believe that Gonzalez, he has good levels of power, but it's lesser power than that of Figueroa. Who do I think is going to win? I do think that Joet Gonzalez will win via split decision. Yes, perhaps that is a controversial pick, but I think he is going to be able to do just enough, to be completely honest. And I think he's going to be able to, he probably will be on the back foot for the first few rounds, and then he's going to be able to land shots which catch out Figueroa, because, I mean, Figueroa was getting caught with multiple shots in which was catching him out against Fulton, and if Figueroa is being a bit lazy defensively, again, he's going to get caught out. And if he is put on the back foot at any point, I think Gonzalez is going to be able to have quite a bit of success. And again, I think that's just what's going to lead him to be able to nick a close split decision, which will probably be an all-out war. And I can't wait to watch. And yeah, that is my prediction. Who we can go on to fight next? Perhaps somebody like an Angelo Leo. That could be a real kind of big win, and well, a real big fight and a real big last gasp opportunity for him to maybe stake a claim for a world title. I think Liao, out of all the world champions, will probably be most likely to let Gonzalez have an opportunity, just because Liao's young and he's got time and he needs to probably develop still a bit more as a world champion, so he might be willing to let guys like Gonzalez up, so perhaps that could happen. Ramirez versus Gonzalez, I think, would be an all-out war as well. Or Kolmatov, again, somebody who did take a loss and he had his opportunity to fight at a world title, and then he's taken a step down and fought out in Kazakhstan. So maybe now he could be getting back in the mix. Working with Top Rank. Gonzalez has fought with Top Rank on multiple occasions. That could definitely happen. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and like I said, this will be out on YouTube within the next few weeks, but hope you enjoyed it on the Patreon. Thank you very much, and yeah, like the video if you did need to like the video, subscribe if you're new when this comes out on YouTube, and thanks for watching.